Can you just what's the last few weeks been like for you? Kind of when the contact with Coach Sett started, and now here you are, three or four practices into spring ball a couple weeks later.
I'll tell you what, it's been awesome. I always think God has a plan. I really think it worked in this situation. I've always known about Coach Sett, always heard about him. I think everybody in the country knows they run the outside zone probably as good as anybody. And I felt like we did the same thing at Kansas City. When I was at the Chiefs, 2012, we had Jamal Charles. If you took around the way the quarterbacks were running, we led the league in actual rushing yards. You know what I mean? I think Michael Vick and some of those guys were in the league at that time. But so I fell in love with the outside zone. So it's kind of ironic because I actually wanted to come here and study Louisville, even if I was still at Auburn. I was going to try to get up here and see what they were doing with the outside zone. Obviously we got let go at Auburn, and then, just like anything, you try to get – I knew Gunnar Brewer. That was my one contact of the staff, probably my best contact. And so, I just got an opportunity to talk to Coach Sett, and we interviewed, and here I am. So it's a big thrill. I love this area. We're really excited, my wife and I, and can't wait to I really like the feel of this team. It's kind of a blue-collar, gritty unentitled team. That these guys want to win, and the atmosphere and the intensity has been great so far.
Hey, Coach Bicknell, it's Cameron from the Courier-Journal. First, welcome to Louisville.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm curious. Obviously, you're just I think maybe a week, 3 or 4 practices into the spring. But what are your impressions of the offensive line? I think everybody kind of considers it a pretty deep group coming back for Louisville. Yeah,
I think it is a deep group. It's kind of nice. When I got to Auburn, they told me all 5 guys just left. You know what I mean? I'm like, God, And we actually had a kid that played, our center played the last 5 games, but the 5 starters from Auburn the year before were all gone. And so this is the opposite. We got some guys that have played some football before, and hopefully I can come in and give them some of the insight and some of the experiences I've had to help them get better, And but I really like the group. I really feel like, there's some experience there. You talk about Nato and Renato Brown and Adonis Boone. I'm kind of glancing at my depth chart because the one thing you got to do is come in here and learn the offense. You know what I mean? So you're scrambling around trying to, there's certain, black to me is left and sometimes it's right. So I might be looking left, the play's going right. So, I'm getting better as I go. But on top of that, you got to kind of get a feel for your players. And that's hard until you're actually out there and practicing. But, you got Adonis, Renato, Caleb, obviously Cole. Those guys, have all played. Josh, and I'll tell you what, Trevor Reed, man, that's just walking in here. That's an awfully, really explosive and really good player. So, and then I could go through the other guys also. So it's a deep group. I think the best thing about that is you can have some competition. They can't. They know they got to be pressed every day. They got to bring it. So I'm really excited about it. I think we're gonna have a chance to be really good up front.
Hey, Coach, this is Matt McGavick with Sports Illustrated. First of all, welcome to Louisville.
Thank you.
What would you say your overall coaching style, coaching philosophy, what would you describe it as?
Well, I would just have to say my dad was a coach till he's 70, and he told me treat every player like they're your own son, and that would be the number one thing. I always try to keep that in mind. If you get on them, love them up. Don't let them go home upset. You know what I mean? But, I wasn't always easy on my own son. And I just told him that. I said, I can coach you to be average. I can coach you not to improve. Or I can, every single time I see 1 inch wrong step, I could be on your butt. You know what I mean? But the big thing I always tell them, look, if I'm yelling, number one, half the time music's going, I don't have to yell. But if I'm yelling at you, that's never going to be in a demeaning way or never going to be in a disrespectful way. It's going to be out of love and caring for you to get you better. You know what I mean? I could be your buddy and you probably love me and, Same thing with my son. You don't treat your son that way because it's a cold, hard world out there. So it's the same type of thing, you know what I mean? But as long as they know you love and care for them, they're going to play hard for you. And I do believe that that's important because if they don't feel that way, you're never going to get the most out of them that you could.
Hey, Coach Michael McCammon from Cardinal Authority. You're kind of new to the program, so you kind of bring an outsider's view. Last year didn't go obviously the way that this team wanted to. Do you get a sense as kind of the new guy, the hunger, the chip on the shoulder? Is that there for them?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I think it is. I haven't even watched last year's games. I know they were. We just had a thing. I watched a little bit of one. And I know they're down by like 5 to Notre Dame, and so they had some close games. But last year was a crazy year. I mean, everybody's like, back in March, it's like, oh yeah, you guys just go out. Oh man, it would be wonderful. You could just get out on the field. You know what I mean? Just somehow do it. Risk your life. You know what I mean? And then at the end of the year, you're fired because you didn't win enough games. Meanwhile, nobody talks about, well, my starting guard was out with COVID. And, you're just in and out with COVID. That's what's crazy about last year. You know what I mean? It's like, well, it was just amazing to me because I thought everybody was just going to get a free pass. You know what I mean? Just go out there and try to compete and do the best you can. But obviously, that's not the way it went. But that was wrong because the things that teams faced last year with this whole thing was just amazing. So, but having said that, you do get a sense, man, that and I just don't know if it's Coach Satterfield's, personality and how they want to play for him, or if there is a little bit of that. Anytime you don't have a great year the year before, you come back that next year and there's a little bit of a different attitude. But I'm just going to be honest with you. That's what's jumped out at me, man. This is kind of a gritty, seem like great young men and they are competing and they're fighting hard. So that's really exciting for me, and I use the word entitled. I don't think they are entitled. You get to some of these programs, guys feel like, hey, I'm a 5-star guy. Why aren't I just starting? Because I didn't give you the 5 stars. I don't know who gave you the 5 stars. You know what I mean? If Bill Belichick gave them to you, let me know, and it'll mean more to me. But that's what these guys, and I don't get that feeling here, man. Everybody's competing and fighting to play.
Coach, hey, it's Jody again. You've been obviously around a lot of good coaches in your career. I assume your dad was kind of the guy that you took the most from, but right. Is there other guys that you've looked up to kind of in your career that you've kind of molded things a little bit after?
Yeah, my dad, number one, 100%, like not even close. You know what I mean? And so it's just, number one, he's my dad. Number two, I played for him. You know what I mean? And so I think anytime Coach Satterfield played for Coach Boone, that's a big influence on you because, you've looked up to those guys. So I think that, for sure my dad, and I'll tell you, Coach Sat reminds me a lot of my dad in a lot of ways, man. It's amazing. He he cares for you and he cares for your family and things. And so you would die for that guy. I would, you know what I mean? And all the people here would too. But, that's one philosophy. But I've gotten something from all the coaches I've been around. Probably Coach Coughlin at the Giants would be the next, just you learn a lot from that guy and that whole staff. The one thing about the NFL, it's kind of like we don't have to worry about alumni, class, none of that stuff. And so it's 24 hours a day. Your total focus is on football. You don't recruit. You don't have to call anybody. To me, that's where I learned kind of how to be a coach, the pace of what it would take, and some of the ins and outs. So I took a lot from the Giants, but really everywhere I've been, Joe Philbin was a great guy at the Dolphins, Romeo Crennel, and at the Chiefs, and Matt Luke at Ole Miss, and then of course Coach Malzahn at probably the next guy would be Coach Malzahn. I and Matt Luke, those two guys, because they're in line with my philosophy of, hey man, this isn't this is all about caring and a family and all those things. Some people talk about it, but they don't always do it.
As a quick follow-up to that, you mentioned the recruiting and being in the NFL. It's totally different in the college game. you have a reputation as a really good recruiter. Kind of your philosophy in recruiting, and you've been in a lot of places. Kind of, do you have an area, or are you more of, okay, I just got to work your connections in a lot of places that you have?
Yeah, you know what happens to the old line coach sometimes? You know, we have so many guys to recruit. We got to recruit half the offense. You know what I mean? And so you always want to try to get a good relationship with each one of those players. So, like at Ole Miss, I signed 7 guys. Well, I was all over the place going to see those 7 guys every week. You know, 2 in Atlanta, 1 was Illinois, 1 was Nanawoya, Mississippi. You know what I mean? So your whole week was doing that. You know, if you're the tight end coach, you might have a bigger area because, you know, you might have less guys to recruit, if that makes sense. So, you know, I'm going to take New Jersey where I was born, but a lot of it's going to be, like you said, I mean, I was the head coach at Louisiana Tech for 8 years, so you know, I got contacts there. So it is, but to me, recruiting is number one about evaluation. People forget the evaluation part of it. You know, just saying this guy's a 5-star and we got to go recruit him, that's a big mistake. I go, you know, you got to evaluate him, figure out which guy, especially in the old line. You got to figure out which guy is going to develop. What young, they're having me guys look at 2022 guys and say, you know, is he going to be a player? I have no idea. He's like 15. You know what I mean? I think he could be, but we got to see how he develops. So it's number one, evaluation, and number 2, relationships. It's the old school, just having great relationships with someone. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just like anything else. If you know, get to know their mom, their dad, everybody that's touching them. So that's what I think recruiting is all about. And I think, you know, I went up to Nick Broker. Nobody was recruiting him. His high school coach was the winningest high school coach in Illinois. He told me he was the hardest working guy in the last 40 years. Nobody's recruiting him, but I said, you know, he's got wide shoulders. We're going to take him. And guess what? He was all SEC last year. You know what I mean? So that to me is, I first of all, you know, evaluating him correctly. Now I got some wrong too. I figured I'd bring up the one I got right, but you know, evaluate him correctly, but then getting the relationships, old-fashioned stuff that we've been doing forever before, you know, hey, I need more fans on Twitter and all that baloney, you know what I mean? So I think that the relationship stuff still works.
Hey, Coach Cameron again from the Courier Journal. When obviously the situation at Auburn and the coaching staff changed and you were let go, but what about Louisville and maybe Scott Satterfield or the offense made this an exciting place for you to be, you think?
Yeah, number one is the way Coach Sat treats everybody and the people that he brings in. I mean, it really is, and everybody's going to say it, especially on an interview. Obviously, nobody's completely out of it. You know what I mean? But I mean it sincerely. You know, I really truly do. And you know, usually the head coach is going to bring in guys like him. So there's no ego guys here. They're all great people. They're all family men. They all, you know, care about you and all those things. So at this point in my career, that was the most important thing to me. And sometimes you can't get that. I mean, I was going to take a job, period. I had to get a job. But thank God, you know, that I was able to get to a place like this because, you know, I've been a head coach. I've been in the NFL. I've been in, you know, some of the big schools in college. And at this point, I want to stay somewhere. I want to build something, you know what I mean? And I want it to be a long-term deal with good people. That's all I care about. Because, you know, I had a blast out there today. Blew the whistle. I couldn't believe it was over. You know what I mean? But you're with good people. You're fighting for a common cause. You know what I mean? That's what's important to me these days. So that was what really excited me. And then I'll be honest, I wanted to get back to the old school outside zone. I really did. You know, I loved, that was my favorite. We were 2-14 at Kansas City, and people couldn't stop us at all. You know, I mean, Jamal Charles, I know it was a while, 2012, but you can look it up, man, if you ever see. So I wanted to get back to that because I felt like that's a really good, effective run. So.
Anything else, guys?
Yeah, a quick follow-up to that. You mentioned having a connection with Gunnar Brewer. Was Brewer the first person that got in touch with you, or kind of how did you guys connect about the job?
Yeah, you know, I was actually trying to text Gunnar. I guess I had the wrong number or something, but I didn't get it. But he actually talked to Larry Porter. That's the way this business goes. You know what I mean? And you know, he talked to Larry, and Larry's like, Bick's out. You know, he doesn't have anything. You know, and so it's a crazy business now. I'll tell you what. You know, it's this is my I hate to say it, but for good and bad reasons. This is my 10th move in 15 years. So every 18 months, we have to pack all the stuff up in our house and move it somewhere. You know what I mean? Now, the nice thing is my kids are all gone. But yeah, that's basically how it happens. You know, you just try to get, Larry knows Gunner, and then Gunner's like, oh, I know Bick. And I mean, heck, I visited Gunner at Ole Miss back when his dad was the head coach, like 30 years ago. Then you kind of lose track a little bit, but you always know each other. So that was kind of the connection, I think.
Coach, and last thing for me, as far as having a guy like Cole Bentley, I know you're early in the evaluation and guys, but Cole Bentley's played a ton of games at center.
Yeah.
How big is that for you to come in and have a guy like that back to kind of anchor things up front?
Yeah, it's big. The center's critical, and I actually had that at Auburn too. I mean, the center's critical because they set everything, and they're gonna set the protection, they're gonna set the run game. So, it's easy to go out there against a base defense. Anybody could do that, you know what I mean? But it's when you all of a sudden start to get, and that's the beauty with an offensive line of having some experience because they've seen all this stuff. There's a lot of stuff for an O-line to pick up, twists and this and that, and and it's hard to just do it all and get it all right. But as you go through the years, then you especially if you can stay together as a group, you start to get that. But Cole sets the whole thing up. It's a very good. It's very comforting for me. I mean, heck, I'll be honest with you. He knows probably more than I do. On some of the stuff. You know what I mean? Not all the stuff. Believe me, he might tell you he knows more than me. But I was breaking huddles before his parents even met. Maybe I don't even know. But no. But he's fantastic. He does a great job.
I got one last one for you, Coach. Obviously, you got a lot of experience back, but there are some new faces. Michael Gonzalez, the freshman. You got Brian Hudson, the transfer from Virginia Tech. How have the experience? How have the vets kind of welcomed them into the group?
Oh, it's been great. And that's we wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, we're gonna love each other. We're gonna be a family. But they've done a great job, and there's some talent there too now that in other words, you can't just sit back if you're a starter because you got some really good players back there. So Des Daniels just needs to gain some strength and size, but I mean, man, he can move. So there's like you mentioned, Brian Hudson and Kobe Baines, all those guys. So but yeah, I mean, it's really a close family type of the brotherhood type of thing for sure.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. I hope to see you in person someday when we can do that again. So.